art is emotion. I love analyzing film. I love thinking about what makes it tick. But ultimately, the things that make film as special as it is really come down to emotional resonance. And we can quickly recognize the emotional impact of things like characters we recognize and we connect with, the impact of, a grand speech or a conversation, or even perhaps a beautiful image. What makes film so special to me is just the sheer variety of ways in which a movie can convey emotion, even in ways that we might not normally think of. These perhaps less intuitive ways of conveying emotion are not inherently better or worse than more traditional ones, more obvious ones, more common ones. And I'm not about to present an exhaustive list of the ways film can do that, but I think that finding more methods of seeing emotion and seeing the impact of various arts in the films, to me, this is one of the greatest ways to enrich the movie watching experience, just finding more things to appreciate. So in this video, I'll present some examples of different areas of film that have given me a great amount of emotional satisfaction. I wanted to start off with sets and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, because to me, this is the clearest example of, one of these non-organic, non-human focused ways that a film can evoke emotion with, in this case, set construction, set design. The otherworldly, dark, jagged sets, the twisted world that's clearly unnatural, clearly drawing your eye to it as some kind of non-literal device. The mood of this movie is dark and subdued. It's splattered throughout the film, and these sets are such a core part of that. You can just get this feeling of desperation and uneasiness just by looking at the world at any given moment. Citizen Kane could be in every category in this video. I've limited it to a couple. One of them is the sets. I love the sort of larger than life sets in several parts of the film, but I'll highlight these two specific ones where they help to communicate Kane's transition from this imposing figure to someone who kind of gets lost in his own legacy and his own money. You can see these two scenes have him in the foreground, just a regular person. He moves around, he goes into this different location, which kind of reveals him to be a much smaller man than he might have been expected to be at other points, or maybe that he was at other points in the film, right? One of the most eye-catching aspects of this film is some of the low angle stuff at different points that frames Kane as a larger than life figure. And so here the sets and these, representations of his possessions provide the exact opposite for him, this maximalistic figure, and then him fading into the distance, fading into his own possessions. I want to dedicate several examples to blocking because I think it's something I've tried to become a little more aware of. And it's something I think specifically older films leveraged a little more when they had more theatrical presentation. This specific theatrical kind of blocking, I think, is extremely emotive. You can see here, Camp de Tiroyer. It's a pretty simple example, but just look at the quote-unquote perhaps unnatural way in which people are oriented, right? They're kind of sitting around in this chaotic jumble, ununified, unstructured. They take turns standing up, giving speeches, trying to talk some sense into each other. The chaotic disorganization, emotionally recognizes the state of these soldiers at this moment in the film, where they are, of course, disorganized, chaotic. They need a force to unite them. They need a way to stand, in this case, against the French. I find the organization of the actors to be extremely emotive in a way that backs up the existing ideas of the film, the existing emotion of that scene. It's heightened and enhanced by the way people are arranged in the frame. Maybe this is more a point of composition than blocking, but it's here already, whatever. Next, Citizen Kane. I love this conversation surrounding Kane's infidelity. This is a sequence that has an arc inside of it, where the blocking allows people to undergo, changes and progressions just within one scene, just by the way they move, by the way they change in relation to the lighting, by becoming less significant, by being further away from the frame, then regaining attention and regaining strength within the composition by coming closer. And once again, it gives an extra layer of visual and emotional intensity by not just being a conversation where you're seeing some faces and some facial reactions. You're actually seeing people move and change, and you're seeing that emotionally reflected in the way people move. The Hustler, similar to Citizen Kane in how it depicts essentially one character arc, or two character arcs, really. You'll see that as the scene progresses, the background player, the corrupt manager, goes from being this figure in the background, much smaller than the titular hustler. As the scene progresses, he draws even in size with the hustler and eventually overpowers him in the frame, becoming the dominant figure, just, again, from the way the two characters move, the way they interact, the way one of them leaves the frame, the way the one becomes larger, more dominant as he draws closer to the camera. So just, again, this is not like insane stuff, but it's simply adding an extra layer of emotion by movement. It's small, but to me, it's very potent. The Graduate, perhaps the most, blatantly clear of the four, but also maybe my favorite. I love how strong a statement this film makes with this blocking right here. It's unavoidable for the audience that it's put together very strangely. Our eye line is being obstructed, and, it kind of forces a question of why this is happening to begin with. While the previous examples are like a little more supportive, kind of like an extra layer, here the blocking is extremely front and center. It is almost the entire point. Helps sets the stage for even the themes of the entire film, just by the way people are set up to block the screen, literally, in this case, blocking. Everyone's seen some movies that gives them a rush from the sound or sold some, delicious spectacle through crushing weight of just sound assaulting you. And I think you could look at like Pacific Rim, for example, as something like that to me, where the sound sells the emotion by giving you the exhilaration, by convincing you of the weight and the scale of the things you see on screen. But I want to go over a couple examples to me that show like the dynamic effect of sound rather than just giving scale and giving weight, because I think that's the most common usage, at least for, blockbuster films. So this is one of those dynamic usages, one where the sound connotes emotional power. In this scene, Julie, the woman approaching the arena, doesn't want her husband to fight in the boxing ring anymore due to just the physical danger he faces every time and the physical danger we see other people face. She's in the habit of being there for his fights, but, the roar of the crowd here represents the emotional weight of the fight as it's like a sensory assault coming at her. And you can see the power the sound has, even without the weight of like slamming you in the chest with the subwoofer.
Hiya, Julie.
Hello, Dad.
You can see the emotional weight the sound carries as it almost seems to drive her back out of the arena. The Empty Man. Conversely, the absence of sound can be just as impactful as a crushing sound. Usually, like in this scene, sound being drawn back can indicate a change, something being wrong, perhaps a change of focus in what the film wants you to look at. In this type of setting, this horror movie specifically, the sound disappearing frequently results in an instant jump in tension and anticipation as there's a change in expectation for the environment. Perhaps something different that we didn't expect, something we need to be afraid of. Certainly in this scene, something we need to be afraid of.